You can't just go plop your child in any place. And so if you're in Bowie, what I'm saying is that you really need to stop past Rainbow Child Care. I'm going to put the address, the web address on the screen right here, and speak to Miss Kim and her staff. I want to make this very clear. Being a young single mother is not a death sentence. I mean, look at me. I turned out pretty well. You can still accomplish all of your goals, and you can live the life you've always dreamed of. It's just going to be a lot harder. Take me, for example. I'm happy. I'm doing the things that I want to do, but it's not easy. It still is not easy. And as much as I hate to admit it, I wish that I was married, or at least in a relationship where I had help balancing being a mother, my career, my home, everything. Let's talk about the single parent and dating. I want to know what it's like to date a single mother.
It's difficult because you, in a normal dating situation, you could say, all right, let's say it's like 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Let's go out. I'll call you. Boom. You're trying to go to the movies. I'm bored. Let's do that. You can't do that when someone has kids. You have to plan it out. I won't say weeks in advance. Sometimes weeks in advance. Sometimes, and it's very difficult. And for someone that doesn't have kids, it's hard to understand that. Your life doesn't work like that. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You're independent. All my time is mine. And it's hard for us to understand, well, hey, you won't hang out with me. You take it that way. And so, you end up looking bad because you won't want to deal with them because they don't have enough time for you. So, but you can't end up, you can only look bad in that situation as the guy dating the female with a child.
Okay, and what about the issues have you had a situation where there's like baby daddy drama and stuff like that?
I've never really dealt with anyone with a crazy baby daddy. I know guys that have. I know guys that have gotten into physical fights with the kid's father, and a lot of times it's because the father feels like this new guy's trying to take their place. And I've seen women do that too. It's like, you're not going to be in my child's life. I don't even know who you are. I've known people that have been in physical fist fights.
I believe you.
Over this. Fortunately, I haven't, but I wouldn't put it past a guy. I really wouldn't.
It's a lot. Having a healthy relationship is hard. Two parents agreeing on what their kid is going to do. If they were married, they probably wouldn't always see eye to eye.
Right.
So now that we're separated and we already probably got a little bit of issues and hostilities because of our separation, that just adds more fuel to the fire. And then you get into where the child's going to sleep and where they're going to spend their birthday, when they're going to spend Christmas. It can get a little sticky, but you haven't gotten to know this.
I've dodged the fights. But you also worry about as the guy in the situation. You also wonder if she's still dealing with that person. Does she still have feelings for that person? He's going to have to be around for the rest of her life, pretty much. He's going to be around, and it's an odd thing. It's just not. It's kind of abnormal to have to. It's three of you in the situation as opposed to the two of you. And it's weird for someone that doesn't have children and doesn't understand that lifestyle to understand that.
I think dating is a touchy subject. I date myself, but I don't bring just any guy around my son. I'm really picky and choosy who he's around. He's around his father is in his life. We're not together, but he's in his life, and my brothers are his role models and my dad, but guys tend to come in and think that they have to be a father figure, and I'm like, no, you don't have to be. He has a father. He has role models. You don't have to play dad if you don't want to.
It's interesting that you say that because I feel the same way. I think, and my daughter's father is very much a part of my daughter's life, and I have a brother, and I have a father and we're always pretty much over their house anyway. So it's like I don't need. I feel the same way. I feel like guys.
I think it's a misconception.
And they don't want the pressure, but it's like I'm not trying to pressure. As a matter of fact, you're not going to be meeting her anytime soon.
Right, exactly.
Anyway. Do you ever feel pressured by a woman to take on this fatherly role?
I've been in that situation before. That's something that I think that's bad.
Yeah.
I think if you're trying to get me to be the father of your child and we barely know each other, I think you have an issue if you're like that. You know what I mean? It's a difficult situation because you don't know what to do when you meet that child. You don't know sometimes you may not know how to carry it. You may not know that should I be, like big brother here, or should I be like a dad? It's kind of strange, and I know from the outside looking in, it may be like, well, why don't you just chill? But it's an awkward situation.
Oh no, I can understand, especially for a woman that doesn't, had a question, or someone threw out to me when I was writing this, a woman that doesn't have that father figure for their child, they probably feel like they need some guy to take them to a baseball game and do those type of things. And not everybody is trying to do that, like the fourth date or something like that.
And then you meet some women that are like, you're not going to meet my child. It almost feels like ever.
Yeah.
And then you have something like, look, just get this out the way. You want to meet them now. And both of those are equally awkward, because it's like, if you haven't met the children, it's like, I don't know, I'm not fully in your life yet. Especially if we're starting to get serious. It's like, wow, there's still that one part. I can't come to your house. I don't even know you have kids, and that's a major part of your life, and I haven't met them. Then if you're throwing them on me like soon as we meet each other, it's sort of like, what you looking for? You know what I mean? What are you trying to get at here? You know, so it's just awkward.
That's interesting that you said that, because I'm probably on the other end of that, where it's like I never want anybody to meet Kenzie.
And that's fully understandable. And as a man in that situation, you have to accept both, because that's your kids. And not only are they not my kids, I don't know what it's like to have kids. I don't have that protective thing in me. You know what I mean? So I have to respect anything you say.
But I respect that too. That seems like that would be missing a part, because I talk about it all the time. So it's that one layer, gray area of my life that I'm not letting somebody into.
Right.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Being a mother is great. Being a single mother is stressful. It's hard to love the way you should, the way you want to, if you're worried about things like your car being repossessed, or whether or not you have food to feed your child. When your lights get cut off because you don't have enough money to pay the bill. It's hard to be loving. You might not even love yourself in those moments. You're young and you're trying to do what two grown people were designed to do all by yourself. It's hard to always be loving and caring. I asked Dr. Nels about depression in young mothers.
Postpartum depression with teenagers is more manifested in child abuse than actually in them developing mental illness. They have to be on medication or something. And what happens is you have situations where you have abuse of the child, neglect of the child. And those, to me, are ramifications of a form of postpartum depression, because they're in denial that they're a mother, that they are responsible. So they cast the child off to the side, don't pay attention to the child. Child gets injuries, has accidents. You hear about people falling out of windows. You know, it's all a combination of that. So postpartum depression, in the sense that you see in older women, doesn't seem to be, in my experience, manifested in teenagers.
And it's nothing worse than seeing a young mom at the store cursing out a child because she just doesn't know any better.
Well, you know, if they're going to beat the child in public, you know what they're doing at home.
Oh my goodness. It drives me crazy, the language you see some of the ladies use with little babies.
You have the shaking, the deaths from shaking. Many times, you know, you're involved with a young man who is trying to help the child, the teenager rather, go to school or go to college, and acts as a babysitter, but they are not attuned to a crying baby that's defecating on them and changing diapers, screaming, won't stop crying. You feed them, you change them, they're still crying, so that for some reason they seem to think if they can shake the child will stop hurting and crying, and gives the child brain damage.
I can say that in terms of having a child, being the female, it's like your life automatically changes. And you know, because you have a child, you automatically become a role model. You know, you are the primary caregiver. Your body goes through changes. You go through changes emotionally. You know, so it's hard to deal with that when you're a single parent. And then, of course, when your child gets sick, you have to come home. You have to go pick your child up from the daycare. So it's a struggle for the parents that do not have anyone to help them. And even if you do have your child's father in your child's life helping you as a parent, just not being there with you physically, it's a challenge. You have to be the sole parent to get the child ready for bed,
That's right.
to feed them. You have to do your time where you may have to study if you're in school. You know, you have to get them up and get them ready for school in the morning while you get ready for work.
Right.
So I don't have to tell you, you know.
Right. Oh no, but somebody doesn't know. You know, some people think like just because you might have a child, or the dad might say that's your boyfriend and you all are going to stay together. If he's not in that house with you, or if y'all aren't committed to being together for the long run, it's not the same. It's not equally. You have absolutely right. The mother takes on most of the responsibility. I mean, pretty much all of the responsibility, and he fills in at his leisure. What about the financial struggles? You mentioned that your nonprofit helps women to be stable so that they can get everything they need within themselves. What do you know, or what can you tell that I probably already know myself about how hard it is for a woman to get by with their own money and not the help of a guy? 100%. I mean, because you know what they do. They say they helping, and you know, they bring in Pampers when, you know, daycare is like $200.
Right.
So what about the financial struggles?
I think the biggest thing that I try to relate to my clients is, as far as our employment sector, like, I don't want to just help you get a job, like working at McDonald's or working at Walmart or somewhere. Not that that's anything bad, but I want them to go back to school and really pursue their dreams so they can have a career, so they can have a stable job, so they don't have to worry about, you know, money and stuff. Because if they on the right career path, then the money will come. So
that's right. And probably just sticking to that plan of even me. I mean, I'm still pursuing my education. Prince George's Community College in the 2000s. I'm trying my hardest, but I think sticking to the school is probably the biggest thing to even, or just staying in that atmosphere of learning and growing is probably the best thing.
Okay, fellas, you all are not off the hook. Let's talk about the guys' part in this.
Boys have a responsibility as well. If they really care for the young lady, they will not be having activity which will lead to pregnancy. And the woman can, young woman or her parents can be sure she gets some contraception, so she doesn't have to be exposed to a termination.
So my brother, who is just turning into a teenager, he's 13, I definitely teach him to, you know, just be easy, because with young boys, it's like they're almost expected to have sex. You know, they're taught differently than girls. Young boy has sex, it's like, oh, that's what's up, my little brother getting it, you know, and I teach him that that's not always where it's at. Be smart, you know, because it can take your life in a whole nother direction.
I asked all of my guests to share some advice that they would like to leave with young ladies about holding off and waiting to become parents.
I would say wait, just as long as you can. Just try, just wait. I know it's a lot of peer pressure. It doesn't make you any more gorgeous than you were yesterday. It doesn't make you any more popular, you know. It doesn't make you any more cooler to fit in. Just having, you know, sexual intercourse at such an early age, you know, it's a lot of thought that should be put into it. And if you do decide to actually have sexual intercourse before you're married, of course, you know, I'm going to be realistic here. Consult your parents, talk to your doctor. You know, I was on birth control before I even started having sex, but it was just my mom sat down with me and had that conversation and said, look, you know, I can't be with you at all times. I want you to be ready, and I want you to protect yourself. Outside of just condoms, you know, you should, you know, look into birth control, because condoms aren't 100% effective. So I would just say wait as long as possible. It's overrated.
It takes two to tango, right? I mean, a young boy has to be with a young girl in order to even get her pregnant. You know, so if we teach the young men just as much as we teach the young women, then I think that's a good start at least.
I think that, you know, it's a negative word about that you hear about abstinence, and the negative word you hear about marriage. I think that abstinence is something that needs to be discussed. I think if you're in a relationship, monogamous relationship with someone, you all need to discuss that and determine what your limits are. As far as marriage is concerned, unfortunately, if you look at the statistics, only 44% of African Americans are married. I mean, it's just a number, whereas in 85% in the other population. So, and we don't even talk about the Asians, they're all married, so that's another story. So the situation that you have is to prevent pregnancy, abstinence. You're not going to do that, be sure you have contraception. And secondly, being in a relationship where you have two incomes will help support the child